Morning, everybody.
David, good morning. How are you?
Good. How's everyone?
Yep.
Good, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And just a reminder, we are streaming and live on YouTube as well.
guess everyone's being sociably late this morning, so we'll still wait a while.
Can't blame the traffic. I assume we got RSVPs.
Yeah, in fact, I'm looking at the spreadsheet I put together for everyone's availability, and Heather, Adelie, James, and Janina had all said they were available at this time, so. I just got a text from Christy, so I don't know if he's attending for Adelie. I'm going to text him back. Actually, Chris, could you send an invite to Christy and Antus?
Yes, I will. Hang on.
Good morning.
Hey, Janina.
Chris, can you also send one to Heather Stobush, please, as well?
Yeah, she already has one, but I will resend it now. Okay.
She's emailing saying she doesn't see it, so.
Yeah. I came about a week ago, but I will send it right now. I'll resend it and it will pop up. Hang on. Okay, Chris has his. Heather's has just been resent. And I just emailed Heather back to let her know that's been resent too. So hopefully we will see her shortly.
Did the other participants confirm or, just us who,
Yeah, yes, yeah, so I'm not sure what changed. If Heather gets on, we should probably get going. I don't know how much longer we want to wait to see if Adelie signs on.
You thought Chris was gonna join though for them, right?
Well, but then Chris sounds like he got pulled into a meeting, so.
Okay. Right,
And actually, technically, Chris is not, he's not an alternate.
true. I'm gonna give Heather a quick call, see if she's got this. I called Heather, but went right to voicemail. And I have resent that, so perhaps she's getting on.
All right, I'm gonna go mute for a second and try and get in touch with James Flaherty.
Thanks.
James is jumping on right now.
Great.
There he is. I'll check with Heather one more time, and if I can't get a hold of her, David, if I can't get a hold of Heather, should we just get going? And
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we got to be respectful of everyone's time.
all right, let me try Heather one more time. I am not having any luck getting through to Heather. I don't know where she's gone, so maybe we should get it kicked off and they'll join in at some point as we're talking, hopefully. So since we do not have a chair, I'm going to fill in as the TMC chair today. We will have to do election of new officers at the regularly scheduled October meeting, but for now I'll handle things today. So I guess first thing on the agenda will be roll call. So Jennifer, I'll have you handle that.
Good morning. So for president, we have Miss Janina Elkin.
Well, actually, could you call the roll? Like
roll the call.
ask people, are you present? Like call out their name and event.
So for roll call, we have Janina Elkin.
Here.
For Jason Harris,
Here.
James Flaherty,
Here.
Brad Miller, Adelaide LeGrand, Cassandra Borcher, Heather Stobush.
Oh,
And
she's
I'll
just
give her 1 minute. I think she's connecting. Call her now.
Heather Stobush.
Here.
Wonderful. And Scott Drainville. And that concludes the roll.
okay. Heather, thanks for joining. What I was telling the group was that since we no longer have a chair, since Jonathan Roberson has left MCAT, I was going to go ahead and fill in as the chair, unless you want to volunteer to do it as the vice chair. But I'm certainly happy to moderate this meeting if you want.
You go for it. I have a sore throat,
Okay.
so I'll
All
talk
right.
less than more.
I'm up to the task. So next item on the agenda, I believe, is any public comment. Chris and Jennifer, do we have any public comments for this meeting?
No, we do not have any public comment.
We do not.
Okay, very good. So then let's go ahead and get into the agenda. Really, it's 2 discussion items, and really this meeting is meant to just kind of be an open and frank discussion about TBARTA and the TMC. And I think David wanted to make some introductory comments before I pull up a slide with just it's the slides that I sent you yesterday. But before we get to that, I think David wanted to just make a few introductory comments.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. And I want to start out by thanking you all for making yourselves available. I know we weren't scheduled to get back together again until October, but we've been having some conversations at TBARTA's policy committee that could impact the agency and regional transit. So I've been reaching out to a lot of our stakeholders for input and thought it would be important to meet with members of the TMC as well. Everybody's aware that TBARTA's state funding was vetoed again over the summer. That makes 4 out of the past 5 years that we've been unsuccessful. We've been talking about, where that leaves us as an agency. We're currently going through our budget process for FY23, and we'll be talking about a financial projection for FY24 at our finance committee meeting next week. So funding obviously is one piece of it, but the other part of the conversation involves who TBARTA is and what we do, what our role in the region is. Clearly, there haven't been a lot of results from a regional transit standpoint. So are there any changes that could be made for us to be more effective? Could we serve in a different role? Could we do something that we're not doing? Could we refocus from something that we are doing? The goal ultimately is to support and complement you all as our local transit partners. So we wanted to get input from all of you about all of this. The slides that Brian sent out yesterday and that we're getting ready to share are ideas that have been suggested already. They're not proposed changes at all, but they're just ideas for you all to provide input on and feedback about. And we certainly hope that you have other ideas that you brought with you for the group to discuss as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Brian and we'll bring the slides up.
Sure, I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Do you have, I think that's the wrong screen. Hold on a second. Are you seeing the agenda or are you seeing my PowerPoint?
I see the PowerPoint.
Okay,
Strategic
okay,
planning
good. For some
discussion.
reason, okay, good. For some reason, it's looking different on my screen. All right. So like David said, these were just some ideas that we've heard from people as we've had discussions over the past few months, and they're in no particular order. We just wanted to use these as conversation starters for what are some possible roles that TBARTA could have in the future. One would be, TBARTA could take over TD service for the 5-county region. We actually talked about this at some previous TMC meetings last year. It didn't really go anywhere. However, it's something we could look at again if there was interest. Another possibility is TBARTA could apply for some select grants on behalf of all of the local transit agencies. For example, regional bus purchases or regional bus stop improvements. Another could be TBARTA could be the forum for the split letter. I'm referring to the split letter between HART, PSTA, and Go Pasco. Another option could be that TBARTA doesn't even focus on transit operations, but rather just becomes exclusively a regional transit planning agency. It focuses exclusively on planning. Another option would be for TBARTA to partner with local agencies on studies and projects and provide financial support for those studies. TBARTA could administer the regional ferry service. It's a ferry it's going between Hillsborough and Pinellas County. So by its very nature, it is regional. That would be something that would be within TBARTA's mandate when it was created in state statute. Another possibility is TBARTA could perform relevant activities in support of local transit agencies, for example, marketing, public relations, procurement, mobility of service. And the last one is TBARTA could support requests from TBARTA could support coordinate requests for local agency grant funding. So these are just a couple of the ideas we had. They're by no means the only ideas. If you want to comment on any of these, or if you have any ideas of your own, I decided let's open it up for discussion. And I'll go back to the first slide.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments, in regard of the possible roles that were listed here. I'm on mute, right? You guys hear me fine?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I just noticed that there is a lot of like, for example, the TD service. I think that's a good possibility, but then that means that you'll be the CTC, the designated CTC for that type of to be able to administer that service. I mean, was this discussed with MPOs already, or
it hasn't been discussed with the MPOs. It would be something we would have to discuss with the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage, because you're right, TBARTA would have to become designated as a community transportation coordinator.
Well, the idea of administer the regional ferry service, I think that will be good, I guess. I don't know how that works, but for Hernando County, to be honest with you, TBARTA has not done anything for us in regards of, help us with initiative or planning. So I really don't have many comments in regards of what your role will be. A lot of these roles that were listed here have to be done in-house, because like the financial planning or even grant funding administration, that's really done by each agency individually, depending on the need and depending on whatever improvement they want to make. So I don't know how TBARTA will be able to integrate with the agencies and move forward for that type of role. So those are my comments in regards of the roles. I don't know if anybody else have anything else.
James, Jason, or Heather, anything you want to add?
No, I agree that, we have to look at other ways to maybe integrate into the different agencies.
For Go Pasco, obviously the ferry doesn't help us one way or the other here in Pasco County. We'll never get any benefit out of that. For the TD service, unless you guys become a CTC, the FCTD wouldn't allow you potentially to vie for any of the grants, just like they did this year for the ISD grant. Being the forum for the Tampa UZA, that's a potential. But again, that's only 3 counties out of the 5 that TBARTA is supposed to serve. Focusing exclusively on planning, that's not a bad thing because, in Pasco County, we don't particularly have like a general planning contract. So for us, that would be one of the benefits that TBARTA could bring. As for the procuring of the buses, I think we're going to get into a little bit of a mucky waters if you're trying to do that for multiple different agencies and putting funds together and trying to get a contract where everybody's content with the type of vehicles. I think you're going to turn yourself into a cutter contract, and we already have cutter contracts. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know from the procurement side, like PSTA just did a statewide procurement for electric buses that has multiple manufacturers available. So that's already out there. If anybody wants to do the electric thing. I think regional planning studies can still be of value. And I know like we just got the ISD grant, although I know it doesn't cover the whole 5 counties, it's 3 counties. But at least we're trying to continue some aspect of that program. I don't know. I don't have a lot of other thoughts at this moment.
Okay. Well, let me circle back for a moment to the topic of TD service. I mean, yes, there's the issue that TBARTA would have to become designated as a community transportation coordinator. That's an administrative matter. But putting that aside for a moment, does anyone see a value? I mean, if it could be done, if TBARTA could become a community transportation coordinator, is there value in having TBARTA handle TD service for the 5-county region?
I mean, as Go Pasco, we use those funds to support our paratransit. So you'd be cutting out one of our funding sources by doing that.
Well, I think just for the regional trips, I think that would be fine. Because this is our separate grants than our regular TD dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna do the 3-county, but I don't think we'd be like truly upset if TBARTA did it instead. It's still a lot of work, like the invoice, and it's all kind of a pain.
So if there were a way that TBARTA could be designated by the Florida Commission for Transportation Disadvantage as a community transportation coordinator, as long as TBARTA just focused on the regional cross-county trips, no one would have am I hearing that no one would really have a heartburn with that?
Yeah, I don't know how that would work from the TD Commission perspective, because as just was mentioned, the funding is formula to the CTCs, to the individual counties. So you'd have to confirm how, like, that wouldn't like take the money from the counties in some way.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could be a discussion. I guess I have one other question. I've heard, and maybe this is just because Janet Long was our chair for a while, and and I think that's who I heard it from, some discussion of whether there's any way to integrate more with TBRPC. And I was just wondering if that's anything you guys were looking at.
It's like everything on this list. I mean, it's been an idea that's suggested, but no decisions have been made at all yet regarding
Okay.
that.
Right.
I mean, it's something I think worth exploring to see if it might make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't be a funding source for TBARTA. You know, they've got their own funding mechanisms, so I don't think they could take on any of TBARTA's activities, you know, which would create an additional expense for them. But I mean, are there any synergies that exist? Possibly. I think it's worth looking into.
Yeah, their focus now seems to be very much on sustainability and resiliency. I know they did like telework Tampa Bay back in the day, but I don't think they do any of that anymore. So they don't do much in the transportation realm that I know of.
Yeah, I guess say there's the way I see it, there's two issues. There's the funding of TBARTA's operations, but then there's also the activities that TBARTA undertakes. And as David mentioned, like just putting us under the RPC, that doesn't change the funding situation of TBARTA.
Right. Yeah.
I think what we mostly want to talk about today is what are the activities that TBARTA does? Do we need to rethink what TBARTA does to change so that we change people's expectations?
You know, and I'm gonna come back to a comment Janina made when she started out, and she said, you know, from Hernando County's standpoint, they really haven't gotten anything from TBARTA, and I think that's a completely accurate statement. So I wanted to go down to number 5, and I guess elaborate a little bit more on what that idea suggests, which is if, you know, any of the local agencies was pursuing some sort of a planning study, having TBARTA partner with them as a funding partner, meaning if you've got a study that, say, for example, is going to cost you $50,000, you know, TBARTA receives 5307 funds just like everybody else does. And we program a lot of that money for short range planning. So for our regional TDP, we fund that study or that project out of the 5307 money. Could we use some of our federal funds to offset your cost of doing certain studies and kind of, it would basically reduce whatever it is that you would spend, which would allow you to use those funds elsewhere on other particular needs.
Any comments on that? Like, would that be something that the local transit agencies would see value in? I mean, so far, really, out of the 5 agencies within our service area, PSTA is the one that we've partnered with the most. Not so much on studies, but definitely on projects. I mean, we partnered with PSA on their AVA automated shuttle as well as their bustle and shoulder demo. I think bullet number 5 gets at doing something similar, where we'd be partnering with local transit agencies, not just on projects, but like as David says, potentially also on studies. We tried getting something started with HART. We were trying to partner with them on some stuff related to their TDP update, and ended up never happening. But that's not to say we couldn't partner with the county transit agencies on studies that you want to undertake.
I mean, I guess a lot of the studies we do are just, they're not regional based. And I guess that's a question. I know Ava wasn't either. I mean, although
No,
the demonstrations obviously are transfer. I know we're
And I
looking. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think it would necessarily need to be a regional study. It would just be partnering with you as a regional partner to support whatever study it was you were pursuing. You know, the COA that's been talked about in Pasco County, I don't know how much something like that would cost, but, you know, is there an opportunity for TBARTA to provide funding to help them pay for that? I don't know. That's kind of the concept. It's not to do the study for them.
Yeah.
It would just be to provide funds for them to help pay for it.
How would you do something like that? Like, but you will match the local fund, you know, I mean, how will that work? Because those, any type of studies, you know, are grant funded and, you know, so there is a match, federal, local, and state. So how would you planning on doing something like that?
We would enter, well, and an example of PSTA with their projects, we entered an MOU with them. It was approved by TBARTA's board. We entered an MOU identifying what the dollar amount is that we were contributing. They led the projects. It was their we didn't really have anything to do with them at all other than providing financial support. So we wouldn't do the procurement. We wouldn't be on the project team. It would be your study. We would simply identify what level of funding TBARTA would provide to support you. And that would reduce, again, the overall cost of the study for Hernando County.
If I could jump in on that question and piggyback on it a little bit, I mean, if you were to provide us funding for the COA, it's kind of a moot point because we're paying to be in your organization. So we're providing you funding for you to provide us funding. I don't necessarily see a benefit to that.
even though it's two different pots of money, James, because the money that Pasco is providing us is not 5307 funds.
No, but that the non-5307 funds that we're providing you would be our local match for the 5307 funds that we're using for the project in general.
But if that's coming to TBARTA anyway, would it not be helpful to receive some funding in return?
Yes, I guess, but then the question goes to how are you pushing that out equally to each of the 5 counties so that we're not consistently paying in and you're consistently giving PSTA or HART the funding, where Hernando or Manatee or even Pasco, we're not getting our equitable portion.
What are you getting now?
From your team,
Yeah.
funding wise,
Yeah.
I don't think you're giving us any funding.
So I guess the point is, would something be better than nothing?
Right, but how are you going to, how would it be that if you are going to use this as one of your pillars and platforms, how are you going to show that you're doing it equitably throughout each of the 5 counties so that we're not consistently saying this is something that TBARTA does, but we're really only doing it for these 2 agencies? That's my question, I guess, because if I go to the board and say, yeah, TBARTA is great, they're going to, or they're willing to help out with some of our projects, except you're consistently providing those funds to HART and PSTA, and then there's no funding available for us, they're going to turn around and tell me that I'm crazy.
Yes, I agree with that. Now, I mean, what I think that will be a good role, now that I'm hearing, one of the issues that agencies, smaller agencies run into is support in regards of studies. And not so much financial, but more than anything is just helping us through the process of the different studies that we need, whether it's like the operation analysis or service extensions and things like that. And that's actually, bigger agencies have their own departments to do things like that, but smaller agencies don't. So I think that a good role for you is to maybe help us through the process, whether it's with a consultant or you taking the lead and helping us. Maybe I'm just throwing that out there.
So technical support on transit planning studies?
Yeah, maybe.
That's-
Yes. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. We usually, when you're putting studies, you go to your MPO and see who they have on board in order for us to put to use one of their already contracted consultants. Sometimes we have to go out for an RFP, and sometimes it gets stuck somewhere per se. So, and it doesn't go through it. So, TBARTA as an agency, as a planning agency, maybe will be able to take that project and work with the agency to move forward and go through the study process and get the results. I don't know, that's just a thought.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, MCAT, the bus, and Go Pasco, do you have general planning consultant contracts?
Yes.
You do. Okay.
Not in Pasco.
No,
Maybe the MPO,
MPO.
but not with us.
It's same in Hernando.
From Manatee's standpoint, Jason, is there anything you can think of that TBARTA could support you guys with? I know all of you are set up differently, right? There's a different organizational structure amongst all 5 of you. So I feel like everyone's needs are different. It'll be specific to each agency. So from MCAT's point of view, is there anything you can think of that TBARTA might be able to support you guys with?
Well, I like the idea of some kind of technical assistance. Definitely. I think that's a good idea. But being new and getting reacclimated to the business, I guess James, I agree with James, was what I'm hearing the most about is what is the benefit of, for MCAT when, it seems like most of the activity is with PSTA and HART. So, but that's kind of like what I'm hearing as the new person, and I'm still trying to I guess identify what areas that we can partner with so that it's like James said, is equitable amongst all of us.
Yeah, and it certainly wasn't by design in the past that we've only partnered with PSTA, because I think on numerous occasions at TMC meetings, we put it out there. Is there anything at your agency, whether it's a project or a study that you need help with, that we could partner with you on? And just for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out with the other agencies. Either they just didn't have a project or a study at the time that would have been a good candidate to partner with TBARTA on.
Agree. Yeah, and I agree. it's just what I'm hearing and the optics of what it looks like. I mean, I don't know enough yet to really identify, you know, where we can partner, but that doesn't mean I'm not trying to be critical or anything like that. I'm just, you know,
Yeah.
that's just how it's played out.
And I agree with you, Brian. Pasco has not really brought a lot of projects to the table for TBARTA to truly partner with us. And so I'm not trying to throw stones. What I'm trying to do is just, if we're building this as a foundation and I take it to my board and the chair people on the board, when they ask me the question of, okay, you're paying into this and they're willing to fund something, well, so far, what have they done? And when I go and say, well, so far, nothing, I either, you know, they're going to ask those questions. That's why I bring it up.
And if we were to, I mean, if we want to go down this path of, you know, partnering with transit agencies on an annual basis on studies and projects, then we would probably have to formalize it in some way, saying, you know, like maybe like once a year, we would solicit projects, studies from the agencies. We'd have so much money maybe set aside each year, and we would pick projects or studies on an annual basis with the pot of money that we have. So, do we want to have any more discussion about these last three bullets? I know the ferry service, that doesn't impact Hernando or Manatee. And Heather, I know you can't speak for the agency, but I'm just curious, you know, do you have any thoughts or opinions about TBARTA being the one responsible for the regional ferry service instead of the way it's currently done?
No, but I feel like Hart is the one that has those contracts, so
Yeah.
I'd have to talk with them about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I mean, we have a conversation in Pinellas County where, you know, a number of small cities want to restart the beach ferry services that are not really running right now. But the challenge we're running into there is nobody wants to bring any money to the table to help pay for operations, and PSTA can't take that out of our budget. We'd have to cut bus service to run what's essentially mostly tourist service.
Okay.
I mean, we'd love to see, you know, the regional ferry be more consistent so that commuters could use it. And it's not just, you know, activity for people to go to the bars in Tampa or St. Pete, but that's again, more funding.
Okay. Let me check something. I want to be mindful of our time because we're at 9:48. We had scheduled this to go till 10 o'clock. So, David, do you want me to move on to the next agenda item, which is potential roles of the TMC?
Yeah.
So, guys, similar discussion, you know, we talked about what future activities and roles TBARTA could take, but what about the TMC? These are just some suggestions that we've heard in our discussions with different partners. One is to develop a regional transit work plan. Another is to have the TMC committee participate in regional TDP updates. In other words, be a formal part of the project team. Another is to have the TMC identify, study, and evaluate projects of interest. Another is to identify and evaluate policy initiatives that could be adopted regionally. And then a fifth one would be for the TMC to take official positions before items are elevated to TBARTA's policy committee. I think that was all of them. Any thoughts on those?
TBARTA commuter services.
I mean, I think in the past, what has happened is some of the ideas and topics that TBARTA has looked in have been kind of like top down. In other words, and a good example would be like the study we did on air taxis and gondolas and Hyperloop. That was something that came down to staff. We were told to look at because several of our board members were interested in those topics. But what about trying to change things so that it's more of a bottom-up process where the TMC would be responsible for coming up with ideas that you guys think is something that TBARTA should be studying and looking at?
Well, I like number 5.
Okay.
I mean, I think that gives, I mean, you know, at the MPO level, they have technical coordinating committees.
Right.
I hear someone's not on mute that's talking.
Oh, I'm in the office. Let me go on mute while you're probably picking up other people in the office here with me.
Oh.
Hold on.
Well, I was going to say the MPOs have technical coordinating committees. I think they all do. I don't know. And everything that goes to the MPO board pretty much gets seen by the technical coordinating committee and has a approval, a recommendation to the board. And I think that does give it value. And they have a citizens committee that does the same thing. You know, I guess if your messages aren't getting to the board, then what real, I don't know, teeth do you have as a committee? Another kind of just thought, not to help, this doesn't help with any of the other challenges, is having TBARTA represented on the MPO's TCCs.
That's a good point, Heather. Yes.
Yeah, so we're more
Well,
integrated.
It is.
Well, when you say to have TBARTA represented on the TCCs, I'm a little confused because we do attend the TCC meetings of the various MPOs as
Oh,
voting
okay.
members. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was sorry. I know I go to the TCC, but I didn't know you were a voting member.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
I appreciate you calling in and just letting us know about this. That's great.
Yeah, it varies some of them because, like, for example,
Yeah.
Sarasota Manatee MPO,
And I will get to
I'm on that TAC as well, but I'm only on it as a TBARTA. We're only on that one as ex officio. We're technically not a voting member. Whereas I think with Fort Pinellas and Hillsborough, we are voting members.
Yeah, go ahead. Give him a call.
Any other thoughts from the committee members on potential roles of the TMC and how it reports to the board?
Maybe number 3, they identify, study, and evaluate projects of interest. Again, going back into the planning aspect that is needed for us, especially.
Yeah, I agree with Janina. Number 3 is a good thing. Because if we're looking at regional projects or focusing funds at different areas, we can all come together and discuss it so that way we're being equitable.
Yeah, I would think definitely for some of the smaller agencies in particular that would be of value.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of policy initiatives, I don't really know what that would entail. Do you have any like examples of what you might be thinking of there?
No examples were offered, but it would be in the context of transit-related policies that you all collectively deal with that might possibly be standardized and applied by you all across the board consistently.
Well, I mean, I don't agree with that. That's each agency has their own plans and their own initiatives and their own ideas and activities as well. So it's going to be hard to standardize that across all 5 agencies. We have different needs.
I agree. Yeah, that's definitely a tough one.
I think that, I mean, I have to say, like, when we have implemented any type of regional service, Hernando and Pasco, we have been communicated through that process and, you know, regionally connected and everything worked fine. But I think that what is the most needed is for small agencies, you know, or us, let's say, that again, technical assistance throughout the different projects that we would like to move forward. We might have the money and the budget, but you know, we need that extra help in any type of project, whether it's operation analysis or whether it's a bus stop improvement, you know, you name it. We don't have sometimes the capacity or the staff to do so.
Okay. We got about 4 minutes left. Is there anything else the committee wants to bring up before we close out the meeting?
I think that one last item, Brian, about potential MPO participation on the
thank you.
TMC.
Something else I want to bring up to the committee members. When we were doing Envision 2030, we had the TMC, but we also had we had the Transit Advisory Group, which was specifically set up to provide input to Envision 2030. And Whit Blanton was the representative for, at the time, the chair's coordinating committee, now the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, to the TAG. Well, the TAG doesn't exist anymore, but Whit has expressed an interest that he thinks it would be important, it would provide value to have MPO representation on the TMC. I don't think he's suggesting that every single MPO have a member on the TMC, but he was suggesting that there be a representative from the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, which covers all of the counties, all of the MPOs of all of the counties, to have a representative from the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance on the TMC. Do any of the committee members here have any strong opinions for or against that?
I think they should participate. I think I mentioned that before.
Yeah, it would be
I mean,
something if it was something that the committee supports, then it would be something that the committee would have to go to the board and say, we as the committee think this is a good idea, because then the bylaws would have to be modified in order to allow MPO participation.
Oh, I think it's a really good idea. I think, you know, I think I brought this up when we were talking about the priority lists, is that we have to be on the MPO priority lists to get funding, and then that makes its way to the tip and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so to have these separate conversations about priorities, I think it would be better to have them together, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Heather. If you have somebody who is talking with all the other MPOs in the area and somebody brings up an idea here, they can tie it together better than maybe some of us can in just the transit world. Because there's other aspects that the MPOs bring to the table that just transit thinkers, we don't actually know about.
There we go.
Okay. Well, then I think where we go from here then is, so the next formal meeting of the TMC is in October. We will have to elect new officers. And I think we were also going to put this as an agenda item at the October meeting and have Whit basically come and make the case for MPO representation on the TMC, and from, I guess the TMC could take action on it and then report to the board saying, we as the TMC would like to modify our bylaws and add a representative from the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance to the committee. I think that's where we would go from there. So, first things first, though, we have to do elections of new officers since we don't have a chairman right now. So it's 10 o'clock. Before I wrap, David, any final words you want to give before I adjourn the meeting?
No, just a big thank you again to everybody for being available and participating and all of your comments. I mean, all of this input is truly helpful for us and definitely needs to be taken into consideration at our policy committee and amongst board members as we continue to figure all this out. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And I guess this meeting is adjourned.